Alright guys, welcome to my channel. As you know, this is a flexibility routine for all my beginners out there. And this is very low intensity, so it's really great for getting back into a routine if you don't have any gym, especially in Canada here. You know, it's getting colder. It's actually cold right now, I'm not gonna lie. So let's get into it. We're gonna start off with a little bit of cardio just to get our bodies warmed up. And we're starting off with a bit of mobility and strength training to get you to better splits or better flexibility. So first off, jumping jacks. It's a follow along routine, so let's get into it. All right, let's go. A couple jumping jacks. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's get down into mountain climbers. Keeping light on those wrists here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bring it up here. Switching over to the other side. Switching to the other side. So the reason why we're doing this warm up is to get our heart rates going and making sure we have enough blood flow so that we're not overstretching ourselves or we're not getting injured, right? Injury prevention is key. Okay, we're running on the spot for a couple more seconds. Next up, we're doing a bit of crunches here, or hollow body holds. So core hold, tuck, hollow body hold, core tuck, hollow body hold, core tuck, hollow body hold, and core tuck. And then we're just gonna do some jumping on the spot here, just to get our heart rates going. And then ins and outs, and also back and forth, jumping. Stay light on those toes here. And let's go into a dive bomber position. Extending through our back here. Open up through the shoulders. And extending through the back here. Open. Extending through the back here. Open. And extending through the back. Next up, we're going into side lunges. So a couple on each side. You don't need to go full depth here. It's not necessary. But keep in mind, these are going to be really important. Okay? Alright. That's it. Now that our warm-up is done, let's get into a little bit of mobility work. So starting with our neck here. Flexion down. Side bend. Around. Side bend. Center. Side. Up. And around. And moving on to the shoulders. Going into the shoulders. Keep in mind why I do this is because a lot of the times on social media, you see a lot of people getting to splits by stretching, but that's often not the case. Most people probably have the strength, but why I'm doing a lot of the strength training routine is so that you have the strength within your stretching. Okay? So a lot of my parts and series to getting into the splits is not just going into splits, but it's for anything that we do. Hamstring work, hip flexion work, anything like that. So that was the shoulders, and now going on to thoracic. So side bend in and around. Side bend in. Side bend in and around. And around. And then we're going into spinal segmentations. So this is extension, this is flexion. And extension, going into flexion. So keep in mind here, you're squeezing your core when you're going into flexion, because you're getting as much flexion as possible as you can. And start from the neck, going all the way down, all the way up. Starting from the neck, down. Mind you, I wasn't always this. I didn't have good mobility. I had opposite of that. I had terrible mobility the entire time. So let's get into. We're going into hip flexion. So coming back up, hip flexion. You can also hold on to the side. Yeah. So like I said, I had terrible mobility. My hips were so tight because I used to run a lot, and I used to get so much injuries. I had shin splints, I had ankle injuries, and my hip flexors. I didn't know why I had like groin injuries. I thought I was just needing to strengthen the groin, but like I just noticed that my hips were so tight, and that was leading to a lot of my groin injuries, to my knee injury. So actually, I never had knee injuries, but mainly groin injuries. So onto the other side, going around and about. So for those people watching this, it's really important that you follow like the sequence, because this is the exact progression that like I use to get in toward my flexibility and active flexibility. So you want to gain as much strength as possible, and I'll show you some of the exercises later on. So this is hip and coming around and back. Now on to the next one. So this is more of the strengthening aspect. We're going to strengthen the hamstrings and hip flexors. So the first one we have here, so sitting down on the side here, sitting upright, you can place your hands at the back, slowly lifting those quads up and back down. For those who can't lift the legs up, you can slightly bend it and lean further back. So it's fine to do this, back down. Most of the time we're sitting, so our hip flexors are super tight. What tightness means is that it's need to be strengthened, not stretched. So that's often a misconception we have with stretching and strengthening. So whenever it's tight, you want to focus on the strengthening aspect. And this is what I mean by strengthening. And for those who can completely lift off the ground, it's easy for them. I want you to challenge yourself by lifting off, toes pointed, keep those knees straight as possible. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I also challenge you to come out to the side, even for the beginners here, going to the side here. And you could keep those legs slightly bent, but I want to focus on a lot on the hip flexors. So a lot of this, you can do it on your bedside, going into a night routine. Really good each night to strengthen those hip flexors. So make sure to like and subscribe, because you'll need to use this video later on when you go to bed. I guarantee you're going to improve your flexibility. If not, in a couple days, you need to be working on this like at least a month in order to see some result. Okay, so that's for hip flexors. Another exercise for hip flexors that we have, hold on to the side here. Side kneeling, you want to place some sort of blanket. I know this is like concrete. So bring it up, down. So you want to be able to strengthen the hip flexors in a compressed position as well. So up, down, up, and down. For those who find it too hard, you can slightly lift and then come back down. Slightly lift. You don't need to go so high. Come back down. Slightly lift, come back down. Come back down. Same thing with the other side. Let's go on to the other side. You can hold on to a wall for support for this. Up and down. And for those who don't know me, actually, in terms of my background, I don't eat any meat, or I know some people are probably gonna, watch this video and you're like, why don't you eat meat? But like, I became plant-based because it helped me with my recovery, with my journey and stuff. It's also good to eat more plant-based because a lot of those nutrients are less inflammatory to the body. So yeah, anyways, enough nutrition for the day. Let's get on to our hamstrings. So strengthening our hamstrings here. So going into half bridge position, come up, come back down, come up. We're doing 3 more. 3, 2, and 1. And hold. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come back down. And then after, bring your legs out. For those who find this challenging, you can always scale it back with one leg out and one leg in. So holding back here, holding here. Same thing with the other side. You want to contract the hamstrings as much as possible and come back up. All right, now that we strengthen our hamstrings and hip flexors, now we're actually going to light stretches that you can do. So first off, we're going into a lunge position. Get into a deep lunge here. And while you're at it, rotate those knees back and forth. 3, 2, and 1. And while you're finished that, try to bring your right leg back here and try to hold as much as possible. So I'll show you from the side here. So for those who find it tricky, just go into a deep lunge position. You don't need to hold, because it might be challenging for some people's hip flexors to hold. So again, circling, and to the other side. Same thing, going to a deep lunge. And it's fine if if your heels lift off the floor here, completely fine. You want to be able to get into deeper into stretch, feeling the hamstrings, again circling the knees. And let's go on to the other side. So for this one, when we're going to lunge, we're going to be internally rotating our hips back and forth. So going into the center, and if needed, you can hold on, rotating back and forth. And same thing with the other side. And this is more of the internal rotation stuff that we're working on for hip. You can use the arm to guide it through. And let's get back up. Now we're done that stretch. Now let's focus on the hamstrings. So that was our hip flexors, now hamstrings. So this is a light stretch. Try to focus on that stretch in the back of the hamstring here and have a slight bend. For some people, straight leg, it might be hitting the nerve back here. So having a slight bend eases the tension here. So hold it here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's come back into lunge. And then hold it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One last one. Deep lunge. Hold it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go on to the other side now. Keep in mind, a lot of these exercises, I started as a beginner. Like, I was terrible at it. Like, my splits weren't really good at all. And I had to start from day one. And so I started just by simple stretches, and eventually I learned that you need to be strengthening your muscles instead of stretching them all the time. That's why you can't stretch your way to the splits or stretch your way to getting more flexible. Sure, stretches are good, but you want to be able to strengthen those end ranges. So again, pulse back and forth here, back in, and then back forth. And then next up, one for the groin here. So getting into a Cossack squat, and you're going to the side here, and try to feel that stretch in that groin here, to the side, to the side. So you want to focus the weight on that one leg, about 70% distribution, 30% distribution. Don't worry if you can't go too deep. Just focus on the range that you have right now. So for some it might be here, for some it might be here, for some it might be here. So go at your own pace. Next up, this one we're going into more of the active flexibility for both the hip flexors and the hamstrings. This is a really key exercise that really helped me a lot. So we're going into our straight splits position here. You can have the hands by the side here or up at the top. What I like to do is hold it up at the top here. So get into our splits position. You should feel that stretch. So holding on each side. So for here, we're lifting up, down, up, down, and then going deeper. And then from this position, you want to be able to almost bring that leg up, but you're not supposed to bring that leg up because you're at your end range, because you're actually feeling that stretch right here and trying to bring that leg up, back down. You notice that I can't actually lift it because we're at the end range. Back down, up, and back down, up, and back down. Same thing with the other side. So we're going into our splits position here. So for this, like I said, we were going into a semi-splits position. So for some of you, up, back down, up, back down. So going into our semi-splits. For some of you, it might be up here, which is fine. So essentially for this one, you're going to be holding that position, trying to maintain that position the entire time. So you're, at the same time, you're not just like standing in this position, but you're contracting your muscles from your hamstrings and then focusing on that hip flexor. So pulsing back and forth. So you can also hold on to something for balance. So this is a really good exercise just to get into that range. And you could definitely feel those hip flexors firing the entire time. So it's not easy, these movements. But that's what I recommend. You get started off with these movements and you're going to start to see some progress. This is only part 1. And the last part, if you find it too challenging, you can always scale it back by doing holds instead. So that is it for my part 1 of splits. I'll see you later for part 2. Like and subscribe.